Hi, Sue. Hello. I'm really gutted that you can't be here with us in the Ritzy. Um, but I'm really pleased that we've managed to grab this 5 minutes here on the night before to be able to have a chat with you about the film.
I know, I am so gutted too. It's my big night in my local cinema and I love the Ritzy and I've got so many of my friends and my family, big virtual hug to them all,
Yeah.
and especially my daughter Simi who's there, who I haven't seen for a while. Um, but what can you do? It was going to strike at some point and it has.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, just amazing to just have the chance to just talk with you to find out a bit more about how the film came about and before we open up for a conversation with the audience. So yeah, I mean, this is a 14-year project. I mean, first of all, congratulations for getting to the end of a 14-year project. We're so happy at Birds of You to be working with you, on the release of this really inspiring film and with such a compelling and incredible main character in Belmaya and indeed your co-director. So yeah, if you could just help us understand how you met Belmaya, how this project kind of came about in the first place, and knowing that I imagine it sort of started out as one thing and has become another over that period of time. Yeah, I'm interested in when it was that you first knew you had a feature film on your hands.
Yeah, well, I mean, it sort of dates back very quickly to my writing an article which was about a refuge in Kathmandu. And from that grew a charity. And from that grew adopting my daughter. Hello again, Simi. And from that grew us going to live in Nepal because I wanted her to have a bit of time growing up there. And I wanted to do more hands-on work with the charity. So I ran this photo project in Pokhara, which, as you see at the beginning of the film, that's where I first met Belmaya. So she was living in that girls' home that was a sister organisation to the main charity that I was working with. And so yeah, she was, she had this amazing spark about her, and I just really felt immediately that she was somebody who could be a great spokeswoman for women's right, a woman for women's rights in Nepal. And with my charity hat on, I knew a lot about how women were exploited in very many different ways in Nepal, and I wanted to shine a light on those things. So, I always had it in the back of my mind that I'd like to make a film, and especially when Belmaya was so captivating when she was young, even when she was dancing or having fun, and also loved that camera, that she would be an amazing subject for the film. But I hadn't really thought it out at that point at all. So I just took quite a lot of footage of her and the other girls, and she just happened to figure mostly in most of the footage because she just is particularly compelling. I
Mm.
always say she loved the camera, but also the camera loves her.
Yeah.
And so then tragically the organization shut its doors to us and to all outsiders, and none of us really know what happened, but they just didn't want any outside influence anymore, and they wanted to control the girls more. And so after I left, I couldn't keep in contact with them, which was, just really sad for all of us. And then when I went back, it was when I thought they would have all left the home, the girls. In fact, most of them were still there, in this, under their umbrella in some way. But Belmaya had by then left and married and had a little baby, and as you saw, was really living in terrible times. So then, I felt I couldn't begin to broach any subject of a film. I didn't want her to be in that victim position. um, that was not it was just no way what I wanted to do. So then she got this opportunity to learn documentary filmmaking, which rather picked up the baton of my photo project of empowering her to speak out and tell her own story. So then everything changed. They moved back to Pokhara. They've been living in the lowland area, the Terai. Um, and so then I sort of talked to her about, could I follow this process as she learnt filmmaking? and she was happy to do that. And so that's how it all sparked off. And I really sort of thought then, that was 2014 we started filming, that it would be a sort of 6 to 8 month project, and we'd sort of follow her, just see if she made a film at the end of it, and maybe she'd have some skills and feel more empowered and take over the baton and make her own film. Yeah, so as you say, these things evolve. 5 years or 6 years later of filming, we finished. But things obviously, as you see in the film, they got difficult at home, lots of resentment, and so there were those dual things happening of her seeking freedom and her husband trying to hold her back and make her into the wife at home, doing what he says again. But we stuck with it, she stuck with it, and we came out at the end with an amazing result.
Yeah, and I'm really interested in your collaboration. Once it became clear that Belmaya was kind of contributing to the film creatively, not only as a subject, and obviously by the end she's got a co-director credit. Of course, some of the footage is hers, we know this, but beyond that, I'm interested in what that kind of collaboration looked like. What far beyond being a subject, what else she brought to the film, and to that creative process, and how you work together at that kind of level.
Well, I mean, the most fundamental thing, I think, is that it was her film as well as mine, and she was going to tell her story. And that definitely emerged after the first sort of act of the film, that ends with the police episode, that she was gradually taking more and more power and holding the camera more and making choices about what she shot. And I was showing her edits all the way through. So yeah, I always had the overriding idea that I wanted her to have her own voice. And so I would step back as much as possible and let the film flow through her. She obviously got involved with the narration. So a lot of the narration was taken from interviews we'd done, or just voiceovers from, from things we'd filmed. But she had to do sort of linking bits. So we discussed with her what those parts would be, how she'd say them, and she sort of scripted it in a sort of rough way with Laksha, who was my assistant producer and assistant editor, who did a lot of the translations. So she was shaping it in that way, the sort of narrative arc. She, as I say, she saw edits. I wanted to make sure at every stage she was able to say if she did or didn't want things in. And in fact, when I showed her the edit up until the end of the sort of police episode, she actually kind of walked out of the room in tears, and I thought, oh God, we're going to have to shelve the whole thing. And then she came back and she said she'd forgotten how bad her life had been at that stage, even though it was only a sort of year or two earlier. She sort of had somehow put it out of her mind. And I think also seeing those pictures of her tiny baby and remembering how they were really sort of starving, and she was being beaten the whole time living in that village. And already she was feeling just so much stronger and more empowered. But she said, keep it all in, it's all true, it's my life, and I want people to understand that's what it's like. And then, yes, when it gets to the second half of the film, as you see, she's taking a lot of the footage herself. She's setting up those stories, like with her friend Devi, to discuss, just girl talk. What's it like being married? Do you wish you'd studied more? Setting up the shoot with her husband, challenging him, putting him on the spot. And so I think it was things like that. And then we had an elaborate process of how she'd get stuff to me. But anyway, I'd see these things and think, oh my gosh, I had no idea that she was doing that. The lovely setup of her, filming at home, the birthday party, and her washing her daughter under the cold tap, those kinds of things. yeah, and then it was just in the edit really of making sure that we collaborated. Are you okay with this? What do you think of this? And giving her more agency in that first part by finding selfies that she'd taken in 2006 to give her a kind of strong presence as a
Mm.
teenager. So instead of having her in this sort of director subject sort of power thing of the superior inferior, it's absolutely trying to keep it on a level at all times.
Yeah, and it's an amazing journey that she's been through. Obviously, I think um, I can imagine that the audience here in Ritzy are wondering like how Belmaya is. How is she?
Yeah,
Where is she?
well, actually, she's pretty well now. She's living independently. She's got a single room in Pokhara, just her and her daughter. And her daughter is 9 now, and
Wow.
amazingly is at school, at the same school that you see Belmaya films at in for her Educate Our Daughters film. That's where her daughter is now, and hopefully she's going to grow up and be a very vocal feminist like those other girls. But she's studying really well, because she was a very kind of wild child and very scattered and difficult to kind of sit down. She didn't really read books when she was little, or wasn't, because it wasn't in the culture or household to do that. But she now, every time Belmaya and I speak, Bipana is in the background with her school books, and she's been learning through Belmaya's phone online, but she's now back at physical school. So that to me is a massive, that's what Belmaya wanted. That's all she wanted, and she's got that, and hopefully that will carry on. And Belmaya herself, she had a really rough time the beginning of lockdown, the first 6 months. There was no work, there was nothing, and she used to do some daily work just to get, sort of wages just to live on each week. And all that was cut off. And I believe she would have had to have given up and go back to the village if it hadn't been for this whole filmmaking. But she got a commission through UK Asian Film Festival to make a short film, which I think Ritzy viewers are going to be treated to later, which was a collaboration between her and my daughter, Simi. So you'll be seeing and hearing about that shortly. But that gave her enough money, something that's quite a sort of modest fee in the UK actually kept her for 6 months in Nepal. And then I started doing charity screenings online of this film, I Am BELMAYA, and through that I've given her a percentage of the income, and that's kept her all the rest of the time, and will keep her for another year or more. So that's an amazing result really for her filmmaking so far. And then through those charity screenings, she's had about 6 commissions. It's just we've got to, life has got to open up so she can go and do them. But different charities want her to film their NGO projects, and it's the perfect thing because she's the same sort of demographic as the beneficiary group, so they don't feel that they're being talked down at by some privileged, educated person. They just feel they can really open up to her.
Yeah, that's fantastic that we're going to see so much more from Belmaya.
Yes,
Thank you.
I sincerely hope so.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it there and open up to conversation at the Ritzy. But thank you so much. I know you're not well, so really, really appreciate you taking this chance to talk to us.
I feel so sad not to be there, but enjoy the rest of the evening. And I'm afraid I won't be buying you a drink tonight, all of you.
Okay, thanks, Sue.